What's up, everybody? Self-care journey, 10% happier self-care journey. Today is 3/3/20, and today's topic is meditation and how to comb your beard. All right, let me stop playing around. What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and thank you for allowing me to get groomed with you. Thank you for grooming with me. So be grooming with Aaron Hill from now on. Hey, Sherry, thanks for hanging out. So, anger versus loving kindness. Today is 3/3/20, and the topic is anger versus loving kindness. And as you all probably can see from how silly I am, I have very few times when I'm actually really experiencing anger. So, yeah, I'm fortunate, because of that. But it's still an emotion that we all go through. I myself deal with it. We all do. So anger versus loving kindness. The first thing I'm going to do is say thank you to everybody joining me, and I'm going to paste the notes into the, I'm going to actually paste the notes that I'm about to read into the chat. So they're there now. Voila. And then here we go. All right. Anger can be very detrimental because it makes us suffer, stress, and struggle more and longer than needed for most situations. I think today will be pretty simple because these are things that we all know. Anger hurts, y'all. Like, anger hurts you more than the person that you're angry at. Anger, it's like having a cancer in your body. It really does eat you up from the inside out. Like it breaks. If you have a broken heart and you're upset, if someone disrespected you, if someone just didn't meet up to your expectations, these things can make us angry. But anger is almost like holding a frown. Like, it's harder to hold a frown. Like, it's harder to do that. It takes more muscles to stay like that than it does to just relax. Hey, Vendetta, thanks for hanging out. Everybody else, drop a line. Let me know if you all can hear me clearly, and we'll keep it moving. So anger can be very detrimental because it makes us suffer, stress, and struggle more and longer than needed for most situations. And I say most because, there's a time for everything, and you can't fault, we can't be faulted for getting angry. It's just a natural thing, but longevity is where we get in trouble, and where it ultimately affects our mental health and our physical health. Thanks a lot. Number 2, anger, hatred, and resentment are expenditures of energy that doesn't serve us or others. So meditation and mindfulness gives us a resiliency to guard against soaking up toxic energy. We may feel it, but we can also let it go. So this makes me think about a study that they did in this same course, the 10% Happier course. They were talking about a study where they noticed that, they did like a brain scan on 2 people who were in a lab, one that was a meditator and another person who wasn't, and they both were receiving the same kind of stimulus. I think it was like babies crying and people screaming and that kind of thing. And they monitored the brain to see what kind of action happened in the brain. And so they said that in the area of like the stress response, they noticed that it would be the same amount in both people. Same amount in both people. So from the inside, and this is the interesting thing, from the inside out, the people look like that they were dealing with this scenario and the situations the same exact way. And they said even a neuroscientist would look at both of these brains and say, both of these people are really having a tough time with these stimuli, these negative stimuli. But what they found was that although they look the same as far as the brain, when you experience the 2 people in person, one person was very, very much, calm and, composed, and the other person was frantic. And the only difference was that the meditation and the mindfulness allowed them to get to a different place within the experience. And it wasn't that they did not experience that feeling. And I think that's so important because a lot of the people that we idolize, even down to the gurus and the deities, we idolize them from the perspective of not having certain feelings, and that's what makes us espouse to be like them. But actually, to me, this makes more sense where we are practitioners. We are people that are experiencing what we're experiencing. And some of us just are working or have worked to a point where we're managing within those experiences. That's all it is. For those that never heard my analogy on this, I remember the first time I read an article, I think it might have been by someone like Herbie Hancock in a jazz magazine, and they were asking him what he thought of improvisation, what was his definition. And basically, in so many words, he worded it where it was like a person who was flowing in the moment and just really responding to, things going wrong, responding to mistakes, like trying to execute but responding to mistakes. So from the other side, as a listener to a really great improviser, it just sounds like somebody that just has an amazing vocabulary, or they just have this picture perfect thing. They can just play this music so picture perfect and so well. But really, you're just seeing someone whose mind is developed to a point of turning a mistake into a masterpiece, as my friend Coco Lorraine Vera would say, or responding in the moment to basically make up for something or go with it and allow it to be, like accepting. They were just practicing a lot of things in the moment. So that's what this is about to me. The whole idea is that meditation and mindfulness gives us a resiliency to guard against soaking up toxic energy. We may feel it. We're definitely going to feel it. But we can also let it go. There's a big difference between feeling angry and being lost in anger. So for some people who are very heady and intelligent, they may just say it's a game of semantics, like, potato, potato. But even if it is, I don't think that it is, but even if it is, I think that statement, just seeing or feeling that there's a difference between feeling angry and being lost in anger. Even if you just say that to yourself, it makes a distinction. And to me, what that allows is, when you're in the midst of tough situations, you can say, right now, I feel frustrated. I'm feeling frustration. I feel frustrated, instead of just like being in the midst of that's when the emotion is overtaking you. I call it the wedge. I think like a little door wedge. Like it's just enough a crack in the door for there to be another perspective. And that other perspective is, okay, I am about to be triggered. I have the possibility or I'm being triggered right now, but it's not the end of the world. All is well, or this person doesn't know any better, or this scenario, there's nothing that can change about this. It's just what it is. Just that little bit of change of perspective, or that wedge, it allows you to have a difference between feeling the feeling and being lost in the feeling. Anger, fear, guilt, and greed can make us narrow-minded, naive, our sense of possibility limited, and in general be just overall tormenting to us. And I don't think that's talked about, as much. How something like anger really can be tormenting to a person who's angry. So, just like a word of advice to anybody right now that's holding a grudge for anything, you better let that shit go. Like, it's just not worth it it's not worth it to your health. It's not worth it to your mental health and physical health. And to be honest, especially if you're angry at someone and they've moved on with their life or moved on with their everything, and you're just the one there, it's like you're the one that's at a loss. You're the one that's suffering. You're the one that's hurting and making yourself ill because that person has moved on. They could care less. They are moving on. And you're only hurting yourself. So thanks so much for the love. I'm not sure who that is. I see the hearts happening. Marcus, Leslie. Hey, Leslie, I appreciate you, man. Just want to give you a personal shout out, bro. Appreciate you as a friend, bro. That really meant a lot, what you said earlier on my timeline. Those that don't know, you can check my timeline. My good friend Leslie Hendricks dropped me a cool little positive compliment. Okay, next thing, practicing. Okay, this is when we get into the art of offering loving kindness to others, like getting that anger out of the way, getting that fear, that resentment out of the way, all that toxic stuff, and being able to try to start, offering positive vibes, to people. So practicing mentally offering loving kindness to people who we have both good and challenging relationships with offers us the opportunity to be balanced in our growth and application. It's real easy to love someone who has just done everything right, has never pissed you off, has never made you upset. But it's not so easy when you have a challenging relationship. But to be honest, that's where it's the most important, because if you can offer loving kindness within a challenging relationship, you can offer loving kindness period across the board, and it won't be as challenging in other areas. So like we talked about yesterday, the thing you have to be honest with, as far as with yourself, you have to be honest about if you're able to do that without having deep attachments and expectations. If your attachments and expectations are too deep, then what will happen is that you'll set yourself up for failure, you'll set yourself up for disappointment, you'll set yourself up for more frustration because of having a deep expectation from giving your gift. You cannot control how others will receive your gift. And like we talked about yesterday, that gift is either the gift of love and attention and affection, doing something for them in the moment, or walking the hell away from their ass, because that is a gift too, even in the form that some people don't realize. Like, you ever have someone where if you did not walk away in that moment, I'm just saying. So that's a gift too. And you cannot be attached to whether people will appreciate that gift or know how to appreciate it. You can't be attached to it. Anybody have anything to say that's on this topic? Like, give me your feedback as far as your experiences. Drop a line. So we're going to practice mentally offering loving kindness to people who both we have good and challenging relationships with. That gives us balance. Offering loving kindness to someone who has behaved badly doesn't mean that we condone their actions or that their actions don't matter, but that we can have the courage and the willingness to see them in a way that frees us from the negative effects of anger, bitterness, and resentment. So you are doing them a favor and you're doing yourself a favor. And it doesn't mean that you condone the actions. And I really think that's a point that cannot be overstated. Some of us don't know how to extend love or forgiveness or give another person another chance, or do something that puts us in a different proximity with them, because we feel like doing that is just like giving in. We feel like doing that, or I'll handle it differently. I'll say at times it can feel like we're giving in, because I want to empathize with people. At times it does feel like that. At times it feels like we are compromising. At times it does feel like we aren't letting our feelings be heard. But if we can set that aside for a second and just say, okay, I still recognize what this person did was wrong. But at the same time, though, I recognize that this person is a person just like myself, who's dealing with a bunch of things just like me. And the only way that I can really help them is by understanding and trying to offer some empathy or some forgiveness or acceptance. That does not mean you have to put yourself in harm's way. If you do that, that's on you. That's a foolish move. Doesn't mean you have to put yourself in harm's way. You do still have to put up emotional boundaries. You have to put up boundaries. That's 2020, the year of mental clarity, 2020 vision, and putting up emotional boundaries to stop letting people just control your happiness or lack thereof. So you still do have to do that, right, at times. But you can do that while still being able to offer something that can help that person, because chances are, if you really let that person have it, at times, again, there's a time for everything, but many times if you just let that person have it, they actually won't get the point. This is a real vulnerable story for me right here, but I'll tell this story. So one way that I learned this is, as I was growing up, I got whoopings like many of us did, beatings, whoopings, whatever you want to call them. And that was the way that I grew up. Now, I still had the same predisposition, but at some point I started feeling differently about discipline. There were times where some kind of physical interaction may be needed, but it may not be in the form of whooping, or it might be in the form of a quick check. Like, I started rethinking these things, right? So I started getting away from just feeling like the first way to discipline my child, or the main way to really get the point, was to go in that direction, or even the ultimate, like the last resort. Because with my son at the time, I noticed that with what he was dealing with as far as how he saw things, in the midst of that, I could tell he actually wasn't getting the point. It wasn't helping him to get the point. It was actually further traumatizing him. And it made him upset and angry, and it might be just as frustrated or upset as I. And I was like, this actually isn't working. And this actually isn't in his best benefit, even though this is something that I'm familiar with, I'm used to, like, to a degree, like I'm resorting to it, I have no problem. But I was like, it's, I could see it, and I couldn't deny, like, what I was experiencing. So, with that, I was like, I chose a different path. And what I noticed was it had completely different results, really because of this principle right here that we're talking about. It gives you the space. Just because a person behaves badly, it doesn't mean we condone their actions when we give them loving kindness. It's actually helping them. Now, one of the other ways that we know this to be true, especially those of us that are, as they say, woke. I never said that before. It's the first time I ever said that. One of the ways we know that is when it comes to, if I think about the African American community and our issue as far as incarceration and, the whole nine, I won't even go into it. The deal is, we know that, many of us know that incarceration, replacing like true rehabilitation, is the wrong direction to go in, and we know that many of our systems don't really seek to rehabilitate, they just seek to incarcerate. But as we can see through the results, that incarceration by itself is not a good remedy for actually getting a person to change their choices or their actions at all. Honestly, rehabilitation is the way, and we might have to separate them from society in a way so they can't do harm in order to do that. But if the main goal is time out versus like helping them to get time in on like education, exposure, and rehabilitation, then we're actually missing. We are doing what we know we're doing, which is a disservice to our brothers and sisters, our human fellow counterparts, So, all right, I feel like I wrung that rag dry. Next one. The first thing to remember to tell yourself when becoming angry is that this is just a passing state. This can automatically give you the space to experience the emotion while not becoming the emotion. Learning to see these states of aversion learning to see these as states of aversion we can be free of them. It doesn't mean, though, that they won't come up. It means we can sense when they are arising, understand them clearly, and learn not to be ruled by them. As we understand, we can have empathy and compassion for ourselves and others rather than judgment. Seeing it clearly allows us to remember that we have a choice with how we will respond. And that, my friends, is anger versus loving kindness. So, I have to say, over the years, I think because of my education and exposure, the older I get, and day by day, as I'm looking at the man that I've grown to be and that I'm continuing to grow to be, and like where my head is, and then I think about where I came from, more and more I think about the way my mother raised me. I think about the education that she gave me, especially being a school teacher, and between that and giving me exposure to different environments, to different things like I was into theater, for some time, and of course I was in camps. She would take me to museums and always take me to the library. I was always reading. I really think that and her just having some good like basic values as far as manners and respect and that kind of thing, it helped me to really become an empathetic kid and to grow up as an empathetic adult. So I naturally don't get angry, and I have moments, but I haven't really dealt with a lot of anger over my life, because as soon as if I feel myself getting to that place, all of a sudden the empath kicks in, and I think about the person who I'm potentially getting angry with, and I start thinking about if they've done something to make me angry. I think about their motives. I think about their intentions. I think about what they may have been through that allowed them to respond or react that way to me. I think about not only what they've been through, but how they were raised and what catered to that. What did they get in their childhood that exposed them to that made them act that way, or what didn't they get? And then I go back even farther. I'm like, what didn't they get because their parents didn't get, and how this is happening because they're upset about what happened here. And it has nothing, I promise you, 99% of the things that we're angry at other people for, it's actually not about us to begin with. We happen to be in the line of fire. We happen to just be the receiver, but we happen to be on the receiving end of someone who, just like us, is just struggling with certain things like insecurity or self-confidence, or feeling loved or validated, And so what's happening here, even as I spit it out and spew it out, that's what goes on in my mind, and that's what has allowed me, even as I come to these principles and, sink them deeper, I recognize a lot of the things that has been natural for me over the years. So, yeah. So that's about it for today. I'm not going to do the 30-second meditation today. No, you know what? Yes, I am. I'm going to say I'm not going to do it, and then I'm just going to do it. So 30-second meditation technique. We need 3 deep breaths and 10 seconds of mindfulness to complete 30 seconds of meditation. So right where you are, whether you do it, now or later, or whether you're in a place where you can relax or not, you don't have to settle in, close your eyes or anything like that. We're just going to take 3 deep breaths and just take a few seconds to just decompress. So we're going to just remember that breathing deeply is something that we often overlook on a regular basis, but that it really, really helps us to just decompress, de-stress, and just relax. So with that, we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose and exhale out through our mouth. So let's take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in and out. And then one more final deep breath in and out. At any point in the day when you experience any kind of challenging energy, negative stimuli, anything that starts to trigger you, I invite you to just remember this moment and that you could just take a few seconds to do something that's so vital and so important and so beneficial, to just take a couple deep breaths and take 10 seconds to recalibrate. So thanks a lot, everybody. That's the 10% happier journey for the day today. Drop a line. I want to know what you all think about this. What's your thoughts? What's your experiences with anger? When's the last time you got angry? What did you do about it? How'd you de-escalate? How'd you tone it down a bit? So that's it for the day today. The notes I posted in the chat if you want to review them. And the music that you hear in the background is Yellows of Spring from our project Key Reflections Volume 1. It's available everywhere on all streaming platforms, so you can add that to your playlist, and I would love for you to drop me a line and let me know what you think. And then last but not least, if you want to help to support me to continue to make content like this and the other content that you see me doing on a daily basis, then you can see that info in the description or comment section of this video. So that's about it. Join me in about 5 minutes for a word a day, and peace, and as always, be well. Take care.